The last time we drove the Geely Azkarra, it was the top-of-the-line luxury model with the 48-volt EMS or the mild hybrid system. Honestly, it was good. Now, we've got the base variant, the more affordable one. And yes, it's lost a few of the features, but call me crazy, I like this version better. This is the Geely Azkarra 1.5T Premium. It is a compact crossover that slots right above the Geely Coolray that's become very popular in our market. This one competes against the likes of the Honda CR-V, the Hyundai Tucson, the Mazda CX-5, and actually many more. Now, like I said, this 1.5T Premium is technically the base model of the Azkarra line. There's only two of them really, so the other one being the luxury. If you actually look at the two side by side, you can't really tell that there's any difference because the trim is the same, the door handles are the same, the side repeaters are the same, even the wheels are the same. We actually expected Geely to step down the size of the wheels to maybe 17s, but no, they didn't. We thought they would also change out the headlights for halogen units. No, they didn't. These are still LEDs. They look really good and complement the car very well. And as you can see, it actually locked itself as well. So it still looks good, and yes, it still looks mature, especially when you put it side by side with the younger Coolray. Technically speaking, this is not an all-new generation version of the model. This is actually already the facelift of, well, this generation. Because over in China, they call the previous model of this as the Boyue, or sorry, Poyue. Poyue? Poyue? I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but that's what it is. When they facelifted it, they called it the Boyue Poyue Pro. So that's what we're getting here, and that's what Geely launched in the Philippines last year. Fun fact though, the guys over at Geely christened this one Catriona because, well, gray, even though it's technically silver. So this is my main criticism of the Geely Azkarra, and it's not the look of this, it actually looks pretty good. It's what's inside. When you pop the tailgate, well, it may seem on camera that it's a bit, spacious, but when you're standing next to it, not really. Overall, the width that it can accommodate is about 54 inches from this board, from the sides all the way to the other side. But you'll have to squeeze in there to be able to get an item that long because the opening is only about 40 inches. The depth of this board, this floorboard, is actually only 35 inches down to the bottom, but it also tapers upward. It consumes a bit of space up here. And then you've got your tonneau cover here, your privacy cover for your items, consuming, well, quite a bit of the room as well, because when you measure it from down here up to here, it's only about 17 inches. So that will be limiting what you can put over in the back. We do like the retract mechanism on this because it's quite gentle and it tucks in there nicely. If you need to fold down the rear seats, one thing you do have to watch out for is that the seats aren't fully flat. When you fold it down, there's a little bit of a kink in there. So you will not be able to get one item in there quite as smoothly as I would like. But when you measure from here to where the front seats begin, the backrests, it's about 70 inches. Plenty of space if you need to. So that depends on what you need to carry in your Azkara. We also think Geely could have improved on what's underneath this floorboard, because if you lift it up, you'll see your spare tire, a space-saver spare tire, and your toolkit, and not much else. In the luxury version, you get a little hybrid 48-volt battery there, but it's not in this one, so it saves you a little bit more space. But Geely could have, cleaned it up a bit more, put maybe some kind of carpeting or matting, or maybe even a multi-function organizer, so you can use the space more effectively. One of the main criticisms, though, is the height of the load space. It's about 31 inches from the road. So if you're carrying something from the ground, you have to lift it all the way up there. You may end up scuffing this thing here. So here's the back seat of the Azkara. It's quite spacious even with my current seat settings. So again, very high grade like the Coolray we drove before. Got these nice door handles here. Very nicely integrated to the grab handle for the door itself. You've got plenty of space, enough to do that comfortably. You've got comfort in the sense of 2 AC vents here, perfect for our hot weather. You got 2 charging ports for your USB devices, and even a pocket under there so you can put your phone there, or you put it here, wherever you want. You got a center armrest here that has a nice cup holder that pops out when you press this button. If you're not going to use the armrest, you can just pop it up. You can have somebody sit here. One thing we do have to really note is that these seats are really nice. The cushioning is very, very soft right here, and these two 60-40 split backrests can actually recline, but just by 2 positions. So there's this position, and there's one further recline. But for my preference, I like it this way, and then you have your own headrest. So overall, it's looking pretty good if you're someone who's gonna ride in the back of the Geely Azkarra. Oh, and if you do need to fit a child seat, don't worry, you've got ISOFIX anchors on both sides. So now we're inside the Geely Azkarra, and as we expected, it looks very premium inside. There's soft touch material here, right here, even with the contrast stitching. The controls, and particularly all the buttons, have a nice press to them, a nice feeling when you activate one, like stability control, the hill descent control, the parking sensors, the 360 camera. Oops, there it is. It's also one of the best, if not the best, 360-degree camera in the market now. Your electronic parking brake with the auto hold for traffic, your climate control system. So you press that, and you can set your temperature individually. It's a dual zone system, so that is very nice. It's a 12.3-inch screen, so it's pretty big, and it's really high definition. We love this screen. It's currently still the best in the business that we've seen so far. You've got a screen here in front. It's not as nice as the one found in the Azkara Luxury. So this one is a bit of a smaller screen, and then it's got a multi-info display. Got your RPM, your speed digitally displayed, temperature gauge, fuel gauge. It all looks very nice, even though this is a base model. You've got buttons on the steering wheel. This is a D-cut steering wheel, or D-shaped steering wheel. It looks proper. It feels proper when you put your hands on it. The buttons, like the other buttons, they all feel great. So yeah, overall, it's a very well-appointed cabin. So it all feels very high grade in here, and that is to be expected from the entire Azkara line. The only major difference here that we can tell, apart from the lack of an all-wheel drive system and the mild hybrid, is the upholstery. Instead of going for the Napa leather, which is found in the luxury model of the Azkara, this one has PVC. So this is the engine bay of the Geely Azkarra. Not that you can really see much anyway. The engine is actually this little thing here. It's a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder that Geely co-developed with Volvo. Of course, it is part of something they call the VEA, or Volvo engine architecture, and they refer to this as the 1.5 TD. Now, don't let that name fool you. It is not a turbo diesel. It is a turbo petrol or turbo gasoline engine. The T, of course, is turbo, but the D is for the direct injection system in this engine. Being a VEA engine means this was designed from the ground up to be modular. By that, we mean they can fit all kinds of different things to it, particularly with electrification. They can easily modify it, easily add things. So that's why you have the Geely Azkarra mild hybrid, but this one has no mild hybrid system. It's a bit simpler. So if you step into the Azkarra from something like the Coolray, you will immediately notice that there's a difference in character with this vehicle, particularly with how polished it all feels in the way it rides. You can tell that Geely really focused on NVH with this vehicle because it really shows. The gearbox, it's not the DCT again, even though Geely's DCT, which is a 7-speed, the new generation DCT, is quite smooth already. The automatic, yeah, nothing really beats it yet when it comes to smoothness. CVTs can be noisier too if they went that route, but I'm actually glad that Geely opted for a 6-speed auto in something like the Premium, because you feel it at low speeds, you feel it in traffic. It's just a lot better in terms of overall comfort and refinement. A road like this is usually quite noisy because of the gaps and the tires. It's difficult for a vehicle to deal with, but the Geely is soaking it up very, very nicely. When we go around, let's try to bump up the speed to maybe around 60. See, I'll purposely run over the rougher part. Yeah, it's just soaking it all up, no problem. So that's the harshness part. But what about the N and the V? For that, we'll have to look under the engine bay. So we're back looking at the engine bay of the Geely Azkarra, and that's because I wanted to show you something important. This is the problem with any 3-cylinder engine, actually any engine with an odd number of cylinders, and that is vibration. You won't feel it too much at high revs, but at idle, you can see that clearly the engine is shaking quite a bit compared to, let's say, if you're used to a 4-cylinder engine. That's about the same size, or about 1.5 liters. Now, this is where the Volvo experience comes in, because over the years, Volvo has built up, well, a lot of know-how when it comes to unbalanced engines, because they used to play a lot with the T5, the 5-cylinder engines, and a lot of their models like the S60, and even the one in the Ford Focus, actually, the Ford Focus ST used that, a variation of that engine. So they applied a lot of their know-how. So they have balanced shafts, they have a counterweight in there, they have a lot of things to try to mitigate this vibration, because without that, this would shake even more. Now, there are engineers, mechanical engineers, who can do a better job of explaining this in a very technical sense. But we thought we'd come up with a very simple demonstration. Little cup of water. If you put it on top of the engine, you will see the vibration caused by the 1.5 liter at idle. But remember what I said about it's all about managing the vibrations and making sure that as little of it is transferred to the body. Well, here, put it right next to the engine bay or the engine. Not much there. That is all down to the way it's managed with the engine mounts. And Volvo has a lot to do with that, even though they don't really say much of it anymore. And also, this whole plastic thing, it does a good job of making sure that the sounds in the engine bay are actually kept in the engine bay. It's not transferred anywhere else into the cabin. That is going to be key with a model like the Azkarra Premium. Did I just close it with a cup in there? For fuel economy, what's important to keep in mind with the Azkarra, or even actually the Okavango or even the Coolray, is the torque figure. Now, it's not actually the torque figure, but at the RPM, the torque figure comes in, because it gets 255 Newton meters of torque at 1500 RPM up to 4000. So that means if I'm driving around casually and I'm not really going past 1500 RPM, I've already got maximum torque, so I can keep the revs low as I can while cruising. That results in a very, very efficient drive. I was getting 9.3 to 9.5 at an average of about 22 kilometers per hour with a good degree of consistency overall. That is even with the fact that this is handicapped because it has a 6-speed auto and not the more efficient 7-speed DCT. So there's a bit more power loss compared to the DCT in this gearbox. But hey, it's doing it quite well. And when it comes to highway driving, well, I was getting around 15.2 kilometers per liter just with me in the car at an average of about 92. We'll try to launch at 2,000. I'm already in drive, and we'll do a 0 to 100 to 0 with the Azkara Premium. So, preload, 2,000, go. 70, 75, 80, and the Azkara has a 3-mode drive mode selector right here. It's in the form of a knob. So if you turn it one way, you can choose between comfort, eco, and sport. In comfort mode, the steering gets really light. It's meant for when you're driving around the city. So one finger, yeah, no problem. It is very light. It could even be too light once the road becomes a bit faster. So when you do flick it into sport mode, everything gets a bit tighter. Of course, it's more for effect than anything else because the manners of the suspension are not actually altered. It's just the steering that becomes a bit more, well, tight. This firms it up a bit more, so you have a bit more control at high speed, or if you want to drive it harder. So when you approach a corner, nice acceleration, okay? You brake. The brakes are pretty good, but when you do make a hard corner, it does roll a little bit. It's not too much to be leery or scary, but overall, we still prefer the Cool Ray if that's the kind of driving you want to do. It's best to keep in mind that the Azkara is really a family crossover. So most of the time, you're gonna have it probably in comfort mode, and you're just gonna be cruising along, enjoying your driving and letting your family enjoy the ride. For 1,438,000 pesos, the Geely Azkarra Premium really has a lot going for it. Safety, the connectivity package, the interior, the overall look, the way it drives, the comfort, the refinement, and many, many more. And this would not be the first case wherein we thought the base variant or the entry grade variant, or even, well, mid-grade, depending on how you look at this, can outperform the top of the line models and a lot of its competitors. Considering that what you get in the Azkara, well, a lot of the competitors, similar models, are priced 200, 300,000 more. That's going to be an ace with Geely when it comes to the Azkarra Premium. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya. If you found this video useful, please tap the like button. You can also subscribe and tap that bell so you don't miss any of our videos in the near future. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter.